I could not live with myself without a guilty conscience unless I put together some type of update on Adriana. I released a guide like a month ago. That still pertains and I think is fine, but there's been such a strong meta shift with Adriana as of recently that I figured I'd bring it up. So the first thing is the top player in KR and a lot of subsequent players are running Diamond Shard on Adri now. So this is what our runes are going to look like. So why run Diamond Shard? Frailty doesn't really give enough bang for its buck anymore since it got nerfed last patch. The issue with this is our fights are going to be dragging out a lot longer, and that's saying something because Adri already had a super long fight. So I think we get a lot of bang for a buck with Diamond Shard. It increases our defense and kind of lets us survive those fights. Along with Diamond Shard, I do like to run the Embolden and Assembly on the support rune. They kind of work well together. You do have to run Thorn Shackles, and Steadfast is what the top KR player runs, along with all these other runes, so I like what he's thinking. So getting into the game, this routing is going to be Uptown to Factory to Temple to Alley. It's actually really fast routing. The issue is it's a lot of inventory management, right? So right off spawn, you're gonna see me take two things that are super important. You take the coffee because you're gonna be able to prep your mocha bread over in factory, get that out of the way, you got some food. And then also I grabbed the whiskey. And you have to make the cocktail or you just drink the whiskey because this routing gets kind of fishy in the fact that you kind of run out of SP along the way. So as you can see, the reason this route now works is because of the new mechanic they added where you can craft inside boxes. You can see me doing that a lot in this replay, but you're gonna wanna actually drop your baseball as soon as you can, as soon as you make that first piece of the sticky bomb. And something actually that's crazy that you might not know about this route is you make two sticky bombs. The reason people don't really run Sticky Bomb too much is because it only has 20 charges and you run out of charges super fast. So as you can see in Factory, I prepped my dead battery with just water and then a battery, pretty easy. And you can even grab more prep along the way, like you can grab some of the gunpowder up in Temple if you're feeling risky, but at pretty much any point you can grab sticks along your way to combine with this chest piece since you get that in the first zone. So up in Temple is kind of where your inventory can get tricky depending on what you hit in the boxes. Like obviously you want that gunpowder first to be able to finish that weapon. It clears up a lot of room. But from here, assuming you got everything, I run straight into Alley. So what scares most people off from this routing is that the last zone, you need 2 bandages and 3 hammers, which is pretty intimidating for Alley. So what I'm gonna suggest here is doing all the wolves and bears. You can typically bank some of the resources you need rather than just getting them from boxes. But also this top part of Alley typically isn't really pick through. This is probably the best spot to enter through and loot Alley because most people route towards the teleporter. So a couple important things to note in Alley is I did use my first bandage to actually make my patch robes to finish my EOD vest. You actually want to put this towards your shoes. So one thing that I mess up a lot is I don't put it towards the shoes and then I'm stuck searching for my last bandage while I'm really slow, and when you don't have those upgraded boots you feel pretty vulnerable. Another thing I'd keep in mind is what you use your hammer for first. Typically I try to craft my diadem because it clears up a ton of inventory room, so if that is an issue, keep that in mind. Another thing I like to do along this route, and something that I saw this KR player doing a ton, is every game, even though he starts with the white rhinos, he ends with feather boots. The reason he ends with feather boots is he wants that attack speed bonus. So what I'm going to do on this route is I prep my boots pretty easily since you do get 2 of the oilcloth. And since you already make 2 of them, you can combine that with your shoes that you get up in Alley, combine that with leather, and boom, you're prepped. All you need is feathers to swap out your boots. And then after I'm done with Alley, I like to roam over to Archery because then I can pretty much complete everything I need for my second Sticky Bomb. You're going to be missing one carbonated water if you didn't pick up an extra in Uptown, which I wouldn't really recommend picking up an extra because it gets a little sticky from there, no pun intended. I usually go over to Beach or go over to Hotel after the fact, but during this game I decided to contest Meteor. It's actually a really good contest option. This build, the accessory is actually one of the weaker points. In the past, I pointed out accessory is like something I don't swap out much because Schrodinger's box is so good. But I don't really like the accessory in this build, so something like Moonlight Pendant is a very common swap out. Something you're going to notice, like just in this gameplay that I do, is I throw out a ton of autos, right? For this build, it's super reliant on that passive from Sticky Bomb and the fact you get to slow your opponent and then maybe follow up with like a flamethrower or even a Molotov. But I get the Meteor in this situation, and pretty much all you need to get that Moonlight Pendant is some rocks and a ribbon, so it's pretty easy prep and you don't really have to go too far out of your way. I do stop over in Hotel first to finish up my second Sticky Bomb. Mostly the things that I'm concerned about is upgrading my accessory, upgrading my boots, and upgrading my arm piece. I think chest and headpiece are already pretty much best in slot. I would take a myth helm over my diadem, but the issue with that is I actually want to get a myth shield rather than a myth helm just in this build, because sheath isn't really doing too much for me on the offensive end. It's a really good defensive option, but with the attack speed that I get from myth shield, it really pays off. So a lot of the time I'm focused on grabbing my Sticky Bomb, maybe grabbing like a feather, which is pretty hard to find at the back end of the game, but I can usually get a couple in forest at pretty much any point. So that's where I go to finish my shoes. But you can see I don't really need to contest trees with this build, which is super nice. If you do get a force core, I would swap out your arm piece probably for auto arms. That's usually the go-to I have. Looking at the KR player's recent history, he really likes Hermes boots, and I've noticed that to be a trend in KR, but it's really your preference. So here you can actually see me showing up a little late to Omega, and I hard chase this lead island into the red. And you might be thinking like, okay, you're just like a serial killer, but one thing I've noticed from watching a lot of KR players replays is they go super deep into the red for a kill like this. So even though it might seem like I'm just griefing my timer, which I kind of do, if you come out with the kill, like it's pretty huge. Outside of that, obviously Wick is super important. Like in this game, you can see I throw some cams up to make sure no one 3Ps me on Wick, and I just kind of take it off spawn. Typically in like a ranked environment, this isn't going to be an option because more than one person is going to show up for Wick, since that a lot of the time decides who wins the game. But what I do is actually TP into school. At this point, I actually have pretty solid CDR. So I'm not like super butthurt about getting Queen of Hearts. It's pretty much whatever I find first, whether it is Queen of Hearts or Burgundy is what I'm going to throw on. In this situation, I do find Queen of Hearts, so I make that swap out. But I think Burgundy and even Red Shoes works super well with this routing, and Red Shoes feels really good, especially when you do have EOD and Diadem. And then from this point, you just have to play it smart, make sure you have timer, and then seal out the game from there. Luckily, I'm able to third party this guy, and he has a lot less timer than I do, so I can just kind of chase him. But yeah, that's pretty much the new build with Adri. Hopefully you guys get something out of this. I know there's not too much Adri content going around right now, especially after the nerfs, but I'm super excited to see what you guys think about this build. Last thing I want to say is current state of Adri. I was pretty copium, like I think a week ago, and I was like, you know what, she'd be like a C tier on the tier list. I think I'd probably move her up to a B. She's not feeling as bad as I initially thought, just because there's so many good transitional items she works into. The issue is you need to get those transitions and you need to get rolling, which can't really be done anymore with those routes that just get you built really quickly because you don't have the damage. So this route is one that gets online fairly early, and it just itemizes super well, so you need that itemization. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you're not an Adrian main and you still stuck through this video, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you got a little bit out of it. I know I know a lot of people have been trying this route and having some issues, so hopefully this helps. But bye.